Well, I was born and bred in South Bank, and I used to go to British Steel every day and do that sort of thing. And then when there was an opportunity to retrain, I took myself off to university and got trained as a drama teacher. I've been a drama teacher for over 20 years. But I'd written this play sort of in the late 80s and always fancied having a production of it. A friend of mine, Jack McBride, who has done a lot of work with Middlesbrough Youth Theatre, said if he ever got the opportunity, he would produce it. And, of course, unfortunately, that didn't happen. So I just decided, well, time is running out, and it's about time somebody did it. So I've got my money where my mouth is.
So tell us about Theatre as Real-Life Productions then. That's what you do, yeah?
Yeah. Well, it's a new company, and we work with communities and schools. So, for example, we are doing workshops with Redcar Community School and Huntcliffe School. But the other side of it is that we like to work with amateur actors, and obviously it saves money in one sense, but it gives an opportunity to get involved with the local community on community issues, and I think that's really what we're about. It's grown-up dramas for the young at heart.
That sounds good. That sounds good. So the production's called Nowt Like This in America. You've just told me you wrote it back in the 80s, yeah?
That's right, yeah.
How did that come about? Tell me about it.
Well, I can remember having a conversation with Eddie Walker, the local legend musician, and I said to him, I can't remember why I wrote it, and he said, but can't you remember how angry you were? I know people who were around at the time will remember that we were offered, I think, less than 3% pay rise, when inflation was 15%, so you were really voting for a pay cut. And it was that kind of thing that really got me very annoyed. Also that the power workers, I think after we'd been on strike 2 to 3 months, the power workers, which is essentially the electricians, they'd had a meeting for 2 hours and come out with a 19% pay rise. So it was obvious that there were winners and losers in a situation like this. And I think I just got fed up of the working person being seen as lazy and that kind of thing. I thought there was a real story to be told. So
it's based on your own experiences then, yeah?
Well, to some extent, and the community experiences. Obviously, the local media covered the strike in some detail, and what I've found very moving is the experiences of a wide range of people. And on the one hand, the people who had never ever been in debt were really sort of had to rely on their savings, and lots of families had sons and daughters that worked at British Steel, and so parents were having to bail out their children and that kind of thing. So it was very, I was very moved by that, and I felt that their story should be told.
I guess it's also quite topical at the minute, from what we're hearing,
Well, it's just massively ironic, and I think a number of things moved me to sort of produce the play myself, one of which was Craig Hornby's excellent Century in Stone, which I think not only raised the issue of local social history and people's work experiences, but also how many people actually identified with that, family members, relatives. And in fact, Craig and I had a conversation, and it's sort of Teesside reunited his website because he's been around the world, and so many people have contacted him because of that DVD that he made. And I think, unfortunately, because of the world recession, because of Chorus's, dare I say, mistakes, or don't quote me on that, the situation is with us, 20 years later, and people are really struggling, and it's meltdown in so many different ways.
Yeah.
And so in a sense, I suppose things are even worse now than they were back in the 80s because everything's so much more expensive. But anybody that is interested, that's done a bit or hasn't acted before but would like to commit themselves to 5 weeks, the auditions are on the 21st, 22nd and 23rd of April at Saltburn Community Theatre. If they can commit themselves for 5 weeks, then I'm sure they'll have a great time. The cast will be about 20 to 25 people. It just depends how many we get involved. And we're also doing 2 auditions, one at Redcar Community School and one at Huntcliffe School in Saltburn, because there are 2 child actors, 2 characters that we need, the sort of central family, right. Billy and Susan. And so we will audition those at the schools and hopefully get a lot of talent to come along.
So it really is an opportunity for people who maybe haven't got any form of training but really fancy themselves on stage.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And perhaps people who also have a story to tell, because obviously that kind of experience, that kind of passion will infuse the production and make it even more lively than hopefully it is.
And keep it truly local as well.
Absolutely, yeah. I'll be honest, when I first wrote it, I had great expectations and sent it off to the Royal Court and all the new writing theatres in London. And although it was very well received, it perhaps lacked the psychological drive that big major theatres need. And so perhaps it only ever really was, just good quality community theatre piece. And, we're all very excited about it, so...
Yeah.
It seems a long journey.
When are you hoping to get it open to the public?
The production is open on the 24th to the 27th of June. That's Saltburn Community Theatre, and tickets are £6 and £5 concessions, which is the normal price for Saltburn. And
tell you what, it doesn't give you an awful lot of time to rehearse.
Well, I think if this is one of the things about amateur theatre. People are very committed, and if you want to do something, and obviously the longer it takes, the more expensive it gets anyway because of the people involved. So obviously not. There will be an opportunity for people to learn their lines over half term. Yeah. So that would help. So it's a 5-week stretch and actual sort of 4 weeks in rehearsal.
Do you reckon you'll be biting your fingernails and opening night?
I'm sure I already have, and obviously having written the play nearly 20 years ago, it just seems a very long gestation.
Yeah.
And I still can't believe that it's really happening. But. Yes, I'm sure there'll be a few frayed nerves and fingers before we're finished.
I'm sure it'll be a really proud moment, though, as well. As you say, after 20 years, to finally get it on stage.
Yeah, because people have already said that, it's great to have a play that's not just about the miners, and it's about another industry. People just trying to do their best and get by on a day-to-day basis. And I think and hopefully, this is, the British Steel Archives are now based in Tees University, and my sister is working on a project about cargo fleet because she worked there in the offices. So I think this is a really important time for people to get in touch with their history, to find their own stories and plays and poems and songs. I don't think it matters what the form is. I think it's just it would be good if people started to express themselves rather than, as you say, have all the doom and gloom.
Yeah. Fantastic. It all sounds really good. I wish you the best of luck with it, Alan.
Thank you very much indeed.
And you have to keep in contact with me. When you finally get it on stage, give me a little call, let me know how it's going, won't you?
I certainly will. You can have an invite.
Brilliant. I'll be there. Alan, thanks for coming in today.
That's great. Thanks a lot, Lisa.